Now, hundreds of thousands of Russians have left their homeland since President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine last year. Many were fleeing economic hardship. Others wanted to avoid being called up to fight in Ukraine. Some who are unwilling to join the army are still in Russia, but living in hiding.
Chop wood, melt ice and brew tea. And off to work in the neighboring tent. This is what Adam Kalinin's day looks like. The IT worker has been avoiding conscription for 6 months in a forest in southern Russia.
It's still better than going to war, just because I haven't engaged in killing people.
Adam is not his real name, and he prefers to hide his face and location. He went to the woods when the Kremlin announced a mass mobilization last autumn. He thought it would only be for a month. But in fact, even more Russians are still being called up. All of this time, Adam has lived in the woods.
I didn't want to take any risks, so I thought it best to isolate myself. If nobody could physically grab my hand, it would guarantee my safety. I have experience camping and I'm not afraid to sleep in a tent.
Adam has made a life for himself in the forest. He has insulated his tent, established communications and built a kitchen. His wife brings supplies once a month, and he still works remotely as a programmer, even here in the forest. And in his free time, he shares stories of his life on social media.
I can work comfortably in the forest. I had to tune my internet antenna. It wasn't easy, but the connection is good enough.
Hundreds of thousands left Russia after the mobilization announcement, but that was not an option for Adam.
Why should I leave my country? I've been living here for so long. I can't say everything is wonderful here, but there is a psychological bond with the places and people I know, friends and family.
From the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion, Adam protested against the war. He was fined and detained for 2 weeks. Hiding in the woods is also a form of protest, and he's not planning to return home for now.
I would want conscription to end for real, officially with a document, ended like they announced it. And of course, all of the hostilities need to end.
Adam still hasn't received his conscription notice, but he doesn't want to take any risks. And with winter almost over, there is no immediate need to leave.
And I'm joined in the studio now by DW correspondent Natalia Smolentseva, who prepared this report for us. Natalia works for our Russian language channel. It's good to have you with us, Natalia. Now, looking at this report, some people are leaving, some people are hiding, some people are supporting Putin as well. How would you describe the take, the view, the feeling that the Russian society has about the war right now?
I think 1 year after the beginning of the war, the majority is just very tired and desperate and doesn't want this to carry on, actually. The official numbers say that support is big for Putin, but there is serious doubts in these official statistics and official surveys. Independent researchers have carried out their own survey, which suggests that only 20% are actually behind what's happening in Ukraine. But a lot of people are not voicing their views or their opinions because of severe consequences. The laws have been changed, and actually the price of speaking out against the war is now really high.
Right. So it's very difficult to get a truthful picture of what Russian society really thinks. But as this report said, also people leaving, people hiding, and even those 20% and that support Vladimir Putin, it's not enough in order to win that war against Ukraine that Russia is waging right now, which is why we see a new wave of mobilization. Is that it?
Well, now we have seen reports that a lot of, in some regions of Russia, a letters, like conscription notices, have been arriving to people to call them up, to like check their documents and stuff. And human rights defenders are fearing there'll be a new wave of conscriptions because people, one thing is to support the war in front of the television set, and another thing is to actually go there to the battlefield, because we've seen numbers and reports that people who've been sent to the war, they lack training, and sometimes they're just, dying after several days or weeks there. So, after seeing all this, nobody would want to go there actually voluntarily.
Not voluntarily, but as you just mentioned, I mean, a lot of those that are sent to the war are not coming back. How high do you think does the death toll have to be for the mood to swing and for people who may not support the war now, but rather keep it to themselves, to actually speak out?
There were kind of hopes in the beginning of the invasion that the death tolls, and once the coffins arrive to Russia, people will go out to the streets and protest, the mothers, the wives. We haven't seen that really, because the price of protesting is really high, and sometimes when this news arrives, you just don't have strength for this anymore. So I think Putin actually can afford many more hundreds of coffins coming back home before we can see the wave of protests.
Well, that's quite a grim scenario there. Natalia Smolentseva, DW correspondent and working for the Russian channel. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Well, hundreds of thousands of Russians have left their homes since the beginning of the war. One destination is Georgia, where Russians can enter and earn the right to work without complication. Tens of thousands are staying in the Black Sea city of Batumi. Here's a look at one recent immigrant.
Batumi, Georgia, a place of refuge for thousands of Russians. One of them is Maria, an IT specialist from St. Petersburg. She and many other refugees say they're against Putin and the Russian war in Ukraine. She supports Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny, but after his poisoning and imprisonment, she sees no future in Russia.
It's possible to hold demonstrations in Georgia. In Russia, they would immediately throw you in prison.
Georgia is her temporary adopted country. Getting in was easy. Russian citizens don't need a visa. Maria rents an apartment with a kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom for about 500 euros a month. Her dog, Betty, shares the flat with her. Maria is financially stable. In St. Petersburg, she was well paid, working as a programmer for an American company. Here, she works for a new client based in Israel. Georgia makes it simple for refugees to gain a foothold. Residence and work permits are issued within a few days.
I registered as a sole proprietor. It's very easy and takes a day or two. Taxation for small business is also very low, only 1% of income. That's a unique situation and very attractive for IT specialists. It's also the reason why many programmers come here. There are tens of thousands of us.
Many of the country's young talent are fleeing to other places and turning their backs on Putin.